So you know, but you
Yeah, I was in charge of training. They'll take her.
Well, no, like.
When she does that, so
Okay.
it's just a delay to start.
I usually make those. Oh my goodness, because I think it was the one. Wait, there's a second, but I haven't been right.
Yeah, I.
Right.
But yeah, you notice. Yeah. Or look at me.
Yeah, I might. Say hi. Yeah.
Are they in the front? We used to have them ask for. There's some in this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have access to I don't know if it's the second one for iPhone.
I think for the first one.
Oh, wait, I like.
Yeah.
Barbara, you gonna be turning everything? It is, it's recording.
It is.
It's Zoom right now, but it's doing part of it, but I just have read a message, but it's recording. Now, so.
Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. All right, we will call this meeting of the Highland School Board to order with a roll call by the clerk.
Drury.
Here.
Randall. Mitchell.
Here.
Schimick. Here. Jaeger. Here. Enish.
Here,
Bonkamp. Here.
please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Posting of this meeting given to the public pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1984. We have a motion by Yeager and a second by Mitchell. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the August 10th regular meeting, August 24th special meeting, and the committee meetings held in August and September 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 10th, 24th. And also the voting around the 10th and 24th and 7th of September.
We have a motion by Campus, second by Shimmick to approve the meetings for August, the minutes for the meetings, August 10th, 24th, and the committee meetings, August 10th, August 24th, and September 7th. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we will move on to approval of current expenses and vouchers payable. Anything for us, Randy?
No, everything's pretty straightforward. Is there anything from your perspective unusual?
Anybody have a board have anything?
I'll make a motion to approve vouchers and expenses. I'll second.
We have a motion by Shimmick and a second by Baumkamp to approve the current expenses and vouchers payable. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And the next thing on the agenda is public appearances before the board, not for action. I think that some of you may be here to talk about football. We'll start with that. We'll give each person about 3 minutes, and we'll try to keep it to no longer than 15 minutes total. So whoever wants to speak first, please. Okay. So just so you all know, once we do get to it on the agenda, everybody in the audience will not be able to make comment. So if there's anything that you want to say about it, this is the time.
Has there been a presentation to the board as far as what the recommendation is, as far as from coaches or anything like that?
We have gotten some long emails from Mike saying what his opinion is. That's the only coach.
Yeah, the presentation here.
Oh,
What-
yeah,
what the
is that what
results
we were
were
on?
From the
Okay,
survey and the night that they had a meeting. So that presentation was.
You got the result from both surveys, because my understanding is the survey was sent out a second time after that initial meeting.
yes.
Do you want me to address any questions?
Do you have any information about these surveys that you want to share?
Well, I can tell you that that's what I shared, I did share that in that presentation, those surveys. Yeah, how that was in there. That's back in the recorded board meeting. I do have one other additional piece of information, that it doesn't pertain to us per se, but yesterday we had an athletic director meeting, and Potosi Casco has indicated that they are making a change. They don't know if it'll be in this cycle. If it's not in this cycle, it'll definitely be in the next, is what their athletic director says. Just
Anything?
another bit of information
Do you know what that change is?
to go in, yeah.
Okay.
They are going that way in middle school this year. which is not atypical. Lots of middle school teams do that.
Is that, co-op with tax loans?
Yes. And they'll still be way under the number, because Castle, I think, had 60-some kids or something like that.
Anything else regarding the,
We're not here about football.
yep, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so anybody else that has anything, the same applies, 3 minutes for you to speak? Yep,
Excuse me if I don't stand.
that's okay.
I've been around Highland football for many years, far more years than probably I want to.
Could
But
you state your name, sir?
Don McGuire,
Thank you.
anyway, when I played from 1954 to 58, you had 105 kids in high school. We played 8-man. Now you have around the same number. And we have 40 kids out for football. Now there's 33 or 34 or 5, something like that. You always lose 2 or 3 in the beginning. Highland and football seem to go, are very synonymous. People, today, it's a very large, big thing. For 8-man, we'll be going back a long ways. If we go back to 8-man, we're gonna lose kids to other schools. Now we're playing schools like Boscobel and Riverdale and so forth. Those are supposedly bigger schools, but we're holding in there well. If we merge with our grant, like the wrestling program is, it seems to be that is working fantastic. The kids seem to get on well, and they're doing well. And because we lack numbers, don't mean we don't lack the perseverance to stay in there. So if we would merge with our grant, I think it would be wise for this district. The busing, the transportation, the only thing you'd have is that practice situation. So if you made a deal with our grant, so you got it. Each school has a half of the participation, 2 games there, 2 games here. Part of the practice here, part of the practice there. It appears to me to be a very good situation for our school to continue to move on as it has.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else regarding the change in football? Okay, we'll move on. Does anybody else have anything?
At the July meeting, we suggested that the Highland School Board and Administration do better. What has been done to make things better at Highland schools? Hiring a dean of students? For what purpose? Are the daily Facebook posts highlighting events at the school making a difference for the students experiencing physical, emotional, sexual, social, racial, psychological, and other abuse? I can tell you what hasn't happened. Holding staff or students accountable for their behavior. It seems no matter what is said or done, it doesn't matter. The retaliation, negative comments, rumors, and backlash continues. We've learned a lot over the past 9 months and have attempted to share those lessons with you at the last 2 board meetings. Sadly, the board meetings have ended just like the other meetings we have had with school administration. No one wants to hear the truth. Not one of you looks me in the eye when I speak. Your superintendent spends the entirety of my comments timing me and signaling to the board president as 1 minute, 2 minutes, then the end of my time years. Why did you not limit the principal's sister and supporter to a certain number of minutes in the previous meetings? Is the time limit only imposed when comments are expected to be unflattering? Have any of you ever tried to obtain feedback or information from us, or just assume administration is telling the truth? You have a new superintendent. Who informed him of the current situations facing the district? Did anyone mention that this isn't the first sexually inappropriate situation the district has experienced? We have reluctantly shared a few details of our case because the school has not been transparent and the community deserves to hear the truth when making decisions about their district. Here are the facts. We met with school administration on 3 different occasions. We voiced our concerns regarding the sexual assaults. We asked our names be kept confidential. We did not report horseplay as mentioned in the school's interview with law enforcement. We offered to meet with the families involved. We were told it wasn't appropriate by school administration. We were also told the behaviors were not a violation of the code of conduct. We have been called names. We have been threatened. We have received letters, all from parents of this district who think we are awful for reporting these behaviors. These are the same parents who show up in court to support the defendants, post on Facebook, give their kids ultimatums for talking to our kids after the assaults were reported, and they in turn report their kids being called names at school. But we are accused of overreacting for reporting sexual assault. We understand there was an Iowa County officer that presented to the students last week. Why? Is there a pattern of behavior here? What happened after the presentation? This is important. You may want to listen carefully. A few days after the presentation, on Thursday night, a group of female students from Highland harassed our son while driving home from his school's volleyball game. It was Mineral Point versus Riverdale. These students were questioned and of course denied their behavior. Isn't it curious then that we have video evidence to show the following: waving arms out the window, hanging out the window, screaming, flashlights, cell phones, blinkers in opposite directions, bright lights, and slowing down to 35 miles an hour. We have since heard these five are blaming their actions on our son, and we have witnessed posts to social media, including inappropriate comments directed at us. When will someone take accountability for their actions at this school? When will there be a suicide, accident, or death? Sadly, this isn't the first time a Highland student has tormented our son on the road while driving. He cannot even attend his own school sporting events without Highland students showing up and thinking it is funny to harass him. He cannot even attend the county fair without Highland students making comments that they're going to jump him or take him down. An officer was here to address the students last week. The district's law firm was here last semester to present on behaviors and its consequences. Your interventions don't seem to be working. The actions these past weeks are form of harassment. Is harassment punishable, or will this too result in researching legal consequences for such behavior? The purposeful ignorance of this community is very sad. People who don't want to believe cannot be forced to believe. I just have to wonder, is it truly a great day to be a Cardinal when doing so means turning a blind eye to the blatant evidence of staff misconduct, criminal student behavior, and violations of the school's policy available right in front of you?
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody else have anything?
I don't know if any of you know who I am, but I am Sarah's dad. I'm a grandparent. How many new are on the board here starting this year? You, who else? Just one? How many more?
He's missing.
Huh?
One's not here.
One that's not here.
Okay, where's your principal at?
It's also.
He's not here either. Okay. I've worked for Biddick for 47 years. And I'm getting ready to retire. I mean, I've worked around this area for a long, long time. Today I was out in the field, picking in the field. We were stopped waiting for a truck. Okay, so I sat for 40 minutes in the field waiting for a truck coming, and I started thinking, because I wanted to come here. This has been going on since November, 11 months. Okay, folks, 11 months. This has been going on and nothing's been done. You guys have done nothing for harassment, bullying. I wanted to come to meetings. My daughters would not let me talk because I would say something mean. When are you guys going to wake up? You got a problem in this school with bullying kids that bully and do it right in front of your own eyes. Is something going to happen to where some kid's going to eventually take their life because of this? How many of you are grandparents? Any of you are grandparents? How many? Huh?
2.
How old are your children or grandparents or grandkids?
2 and 6 months.
So they're quite young yet. I got some that are 20-some years old. Byron, he's the love of my life. And this poor kid has been picked on, bullied, grabbed. How would you like to have that done with your grandkids? Give me an answer.
Wouldn't like it at
Huh?
all. Wouldn't like it at all.
You? Okay, so act on it, people. You do nothing. And the school just keeps going and on and on and on and keep doing the same dang thing. My son taught here. You know Shannon? Any of you? He taught here for years. I got his daughter-in-law that's the teacher here. I got other grandkids that are in this school. What do you think of me, my feelings as a grandparent? The poor kid tried to go to Ira Grant to go to school because he couldn't stand it here no more for being picked on. He goes to Ira Grant. You got dang wrestlers turned around and looked at him and says, "You think Highland was bad? Wait till we get done with you." That's pretty sad. So where does he go? He has to go to Mineral Point to go to a school miles away to get the hell out of here. And he's still being harassed by you people and you kids that are in this school. When's it going to end? I mean, I sat for 11 months here and I wanted to speak and I wanted to speak, but they said no. To try to put it through you people's head, something's got to be done. Am I going to get an answer from you? I'm going to come back next meeting again, see what answer you're going to give me.
So during the public speaking portion of our meeting, we're not able to give any answers.
No, but you can go into closed session here and give me an answer next week when I come back.
In order for us to go into closed session, it would have to be on the agenda, so that's something that we would have to talk to Randy about to have that on the agenda.
But I want to know what your new protocol is going to be, not just out of a handbook and say, read this.
Okay.
School's got to do something. Otherwise, I'm going to go more public. I'm going to put it in the paper. I'm going to just say how bad this school is. It's not, I shouldn't have to do that.
I understand.
You can see why kids are enrolling in other schools. How many kids have you lost already this year? Give me a number.
50.
50 already, huh? 50 kids have went to other schools because of, could be harassment, could be bullying. This has been going on through this school for some time. Because part of this school program here thinks sports is better than the education and behavioral things of children. Sports is number one up here. We got to do sports, no matter who they are. Sports ranks up here. Isn't education what you're here to for these kids? Right? Wrong? So I'll be back next meeting. So, okay?
Is there anybody else that has anything?
I'm Lori Grishmeyer. I'm a mother of the 5 girls that are being accused of harassing this young man from a Thursday night volleyball game. They did not go there to harass anybody. They went to support friends of theirs that they've played many, many years of volleyball with. In turn, the Mineral Point girls come here and support them as well. If you guys want to know details of this incident, you're more than welcome to ask any parent involved, the dean of students, the principal, and the police department of Iowa County.
Thank you.
Well, the video is a little live for what you said on the phone.
So you can go to the police department and see the video of the girls too. And all the text messages and the social media posts and everything else that was sent to them.
Okay, anything else? We are going to move on to the announcements and report section of the meeting. We'll start with the presentation by Smith, Rosenfeld, and Upper 90.
You just kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, so my name is Mario Malanzi with Upper 90 Energy. So it's great to be back here in Highland and just wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to be here. We were here a few months back in June, sharing a similar message with the Buildings and Grounds Committee. So the purpose of tonight is to just share the rest of that, share that message with the rest of the board members. So I have a few colleagues that have joined me from some other firms, and I'll introduce them here in just a second. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Upper 90. We consider ourselves a program manager. So we provide program management services to K-12 schools in Wisconsin. And the program management services we offer are around facility planning and implementation. So it's got a little mission statement there. We help schools do more with less in terms of their dollars. And just wanted to share just a map of some of the places that we've been around the state. We've been in business for about 7 years now, and we're based out of Mass. So a quick agenda, we're going to start with some team introductions. I'm going to talk through a little bit of how we approach this planning process. And we're going to talk about the process itself. Then I'm going to share a little bit about what we have found at Highland already. So we've done a couple of preliminary site visits with some groups and Mike and his team, and then talk a little bit about some possible next steps. So to start with the team with first, again, this is Upper 90 Energy. So there's myself and my business partner, Ben. We've got a support staff with an engineer, project management, and an administrative person. And just wanted to highlight that we partner closely with a firm called Smith Rosenfeld to handle our engineering efforts and project commissioning. Okay. Want to introduce Steve Keycaper from Plunkett Racich Architects. So Steve, I don't know if you want to just say a little bit about yourself there.
I can. Great to be here this evening to review with you our role as part of the team. My role, I'm an architect partner with PRA. I specialize in educational planning. I have over 25 years of experience of assisting school districts in the initial stages of understanding what your educational needs are and develop ideas to bring that to reality. I'll be talking a little bit more about what our role is a little bit later on.
And then we also asked Shelby to be here from Ellers. Ellers, if you're not familiar, is a financial advising firm. So they've been your guys' partner for a while. So Shelby, you just want to.
I'm Shelby McCoy. I work with Ellers. We're a public finance company and your municipal advisor. So you're probably most familiar with seeing Jeff Seeley and Jerry Dudzik. We all work for the education team together for the firm. And they're sorry they can't be with you tonight, but I'm fortunate to be able to come to this community, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys. So moving right along, just in the essence of time, I'm going to talk a little bit about our planning approach. So it's similar to, I would say other firms that do these similar types of services, but I think the one thing that differentiates what we look to do is we're trying to really maximize all of the different funding opportunities that are out there for schools. So we think, obviously, budgets can be tight and, with help from the state, and that kind of ebbs and flows as the years go on. But I think what's not always apparent is that it doesn't always have to be solved, from one way, whether it's, your budget or, folks going to their community for more support. So I'm just going to briefly mention each of these subjects. It might be far away to hear or, to see that, but the first one is like your fund balance or Fund 46. Folks can be tapping into that, whatever percentage they're comfortable with. on the fund balance side. And then I think I did see that you guys made an allocation to Fund 46 this past year, which is great. That's definitely what it's there for. And the point is that you can take all of your needs, and some needs fit better in certain buckets than others. The next group there is some of the ESSER dollars, the federal stimulus money that was out there. You know, that sunset, it does have a sunset, but I think it's still a few years out yet. It's 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So the next one there is what I call your internal utility budget. And we might have talked about this or went into more detail with this with the committee, but what you do is you use your energy savings to pay for your project over time. So if you were to implement, for instance, the lighting projects that Mike's doing, your utility bills will go down, and then you can use however much it went down by to pay for the lighting projects. As a simple example, but you can do that with more things than just the lights as an example, your whole HVAC system, and we'll get into a little bit of some of the energy piece in a second there. The next one is something called as a service. So you might think of like your copy machines, right? If you don't buy your copy machine, you just lease it. There's the ability to do that same type of program with larger pieces of equipment. We've done them with boilers and chillers and things like that. That can be capital intensive. So it's a way to help alleviate that capital up front and still get the right solution in place. And the last one is the tax levy. So I want to thank you, Debbie. Let me just hand those out. So I think an important part of what we're going to be talking about tonight is the facility study or facility planning process. And I just wanted to share with the board members all of the other facility planning efforts that are going on in the state, right now. So what you're looking at is a list of school districts that are going to be going to their communities in November to ask for some support for a debt issuance. So they're going to be building something and they need to take out debt to do that. So I didn't put the detail of what they're going to be asking for, but I guess the purpose of sharing this with you is to just say that, presumably, I guess I don't know for all of them, but presumably they would have been entertaining into a similar facility study type of process, when they decided, what are we going to build? How much is it going to cost? And what is our community think? So, this is the kind of process that these folks have engaged in to get to the point where they are asking their community for some help. So I just think it gives some context to you're seeing lots of big numbers, some other larger, communities out there, the Green Bays of the world have a lot more needs and things like that. But I just think it's a good data point to share. Cool. So continuing on with our planning approach, I think last time we talked about having a couple of different parties at the table, and I want to make sure that it's not confusing in terms of who's doing what and what would that cost and things like that. So I put together kind of an organizational chart just to show how the structure of this team would work. So at the top is the school district. Your direct point of contact would be Upper 90 as a program manager. And then our job is more or less the quarterback. We're calling on the subject matter experts to perform the tasks that they are the best at. So the architect firm is going to be doing those things, the consultants and the engineers will be doing those things. And from there, that would be the tier at the facility study level. And then, if there are immediate needs, that result of that facility study, that's where those other subcontractors would come into play. Plumbers, electricians, and the whole 9 yards. So I also wanted to share that if through this facility study process, if there becomes a desire to have needs that would be outside of Upper 90's capabilities, we would certainly be the first to say, hey, that's probably not something that we're going to be ready to help you with. And we would make the recommendation for the district to contract directly with another source for those services. I could picture it being like, let's just say you decide to do some heavy work that us as a program manager are not going to be your best fit for that. That's totally fine. I want to make sure you're understanding that there's not, markups on markups and I call it margin stacking, so to speak, of costs and things like that. The district would just be able to go and do those things directly. Okay. So that's how we approach a project. And what does that process really look like? So we've worked with PRA and a number of other projects, and I really like the process that they laid out. So this is definitely something that they, hold near and dear to their hearts. But what I wanted to highlight on this slide is that of these 5 steps, what we're talking about tonight is these first 2. And on the facility side, we would have the program managers and let's call them the technical folks. And then there's a whole other aspect of this facility study that's the educational piece of this, as far as, doing a survey of your educational leaders and determining what do you want out of your programs and do your spaces support that. So that's what Steve's going to talk about. And that's what the architect and Plunkett Research would bring to the table as far as this process goes. So with that, I'm going to ask Tabby to speak to a little bit about this too. And Tabby, sorry that I didn't introduce you before. So definitely tell us who you are and what your role on the team would be, and just a little bit about what this is.
So I'm Tabby Davis. I'm with Smith Rosenfeld, and I'm our Facility Condition Assessment Program Coordinator. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what that means in this larger process. As Mario showed in that branch diagram, this is in that facility study phase. And the facility condition assessment is really looking at every component that makes up your building and cataloging it into a system so you know what your baseline is. So if you eventually do move into implementing any capital projects, this is something you can look back on and be like entirely sure where your building is at and what it looks like. So we take a picture of all of the assets that make up your building, we put it into our catalog, and we pump out graphs that look like the one on the top right. And you have a dynamic source of all of the information that makes up your school. So this includes maintenance and capital planning resources. So again, if you do decide to move forward to implementing a new project, you can look back at where your building is right now and see what type of needs you have and how your costs are going to look for the next 10 years, 20 years, if you don't do any capital projects. We've worked with other districts in a model like this, and it's been really helpful in that implementation phase to have something to come back and look at and know what the cost would be if you didn't decide to make a decision or to implement a new project. So the facility condition assessment is really establishing a catalog, a baseline, so you know your facilities.
Thank you, Tabby. Just a couple other comments. I really like how it, the whole strategy is financially to avoid these peaks and valleys where you have, let's say, equipment or system failures. You can start to pick away at them sooner or defer them to later if the funding is not there. So I think that was, that's just a key takeaway from this process. So, and then the next part of that, no worries, it's okay. So remember how I said the facility study kind of has 2 components. That is the first component, and the next component is the education piece. So Steve.
Great, thanks, Mario. As I mentioned, the role that we'd be playing in our expertise is educational planning. What we like to start out with is understanding your district, as Tabby explained, the existing elements or the physical elements of a facility. We're now looking at the educational elements of your buildings, as far as the size of spaces, the adequacy of those spaces, so that we can then identify any deficiencies or shortcomings of those areas, do a capacity analysis of all of the spaces within your building to understand how we would look at potentially making any adjustments to your facility to meet the educational needs of your students. This comes through a survey process with your administration and your staff, as well as other key individuals that you would want us to get input from, so that we could understand what your educational needs are moving forward, and then ultimately looking at advancements of spaces, of collaboration areas, student-centered type of learning spaces, to then be able to incorporate that into an overall plan of your existing facility. Mario mentioned the total of 5 steps. This would kind of conclude an assessment of the step 2 of understanding your educational needs. Taking that further, we then start developing options of how we might look to make adjustments, and then graphically show those in conceptual form as well. So there is a continued process of understanding your existing facilities, infrastructure and physical aspects, as well as your educational.
Thank you, Steve. So that's just, I would say, general information about how this process and approach goes. From here on out, we're going to be talking a little more specifically about Highland and what we found here from a preliminary standpoint thus far. But I thought the first thing that is most important on this is just, what does our financial picture look like today? So that's why we asked Ellers to be a part of this, this message was, what does that look like? And here, especially to answer questions for it, I think, thinking into the future, the dollars and cents is a big piece of how that goes. So, with that, Joey.
Sure. Lots of numbers on this, but we'll see a graphic on the next page, but I'll talk a little bit about through this page a little. So obviously, there's a few buckets that you can take from in terms of completing your projects, but when you're going into a large scale facility analysis, I think it's helpful to have the context of what would it look like if you went for a voter approved issue, and how would that look in terms of the debt that the district already has outstanding. So you have, so just to orient you, on the sort of left-hand column is your valuation. In the right, or in the next set of columns, is your existing debt. So you can see you're coming off of that debt fairly soon. We've then structured some proposed new debt, and we've done that over a couple of years. So in Wisconsin, you can issue up to 20 years for your general obligation bonds. So, but you can always do less, and that would then generate for a tax neutral position on the mill rate a little less money. So what this is structured over a 10-year period with an assumption of an interest rate of 4%, which would mean about $2.2 million is what you would generate just by keeping the tax levy or the mill rate neutral. And so if you go to the next page, you can see that kind of what we're aiming for here is, so if we just do a continuation of the mill rate for debt taxes, what would that look like, and what could you generate for your project? And that's about 2.2 million spread over that time period. So if you then need a slightly larger project, or if you want to spread it out over a longer period of time, you have the potential to generate a few more dollars, and that's about $3.7 million if you spread that over 20 years. So, just kind of a general analysis of interest rates right now, it's an inverted yield curve right now, meaning there's higher interest rates early on than there is later. So under this scenario, extending it from a 10-year to a 20-year, the overall average interest rate is not increasing all that much. We've assumed 4 to 4.25. However, you're paying interest over 20 years. So just by virtue of the length of time, you're just adding a little more interest. And so but still able to increase the overall amount that you'll have to work with for your project. So the graphic is on that next page, and I think this just provides just a benchmark of where where tax neutral would be as you enter your project planning. And anywhere in between that and where we come in is just to then do a little back and forth with you as a board, administration, and the project managers of different tax scenarios of how this could look and what your tax threshold is of your community to increase that over the mill rate that you currently have.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. So from there, I and definitely stop. We're going to just definitely take questions at the end and whatnot, but I just want to make sure to get through some of these last slides. And it's a lot more pictures at the end here, but I always like to, when we walk through the facilities, make notice of some of the good things that are already happening. So when we stepped into this facility and we have walked millions and millions of square feet, is we saw some heck of a good organization by Mike and the team of, I guess, and speak to who did that, but the labeling here and being able to find things and what's going on was top notch. I also thought I liked a space like this. I could tell that, and this is maybe speaking more of the architect's language, but someone had put some foresight into multiple different surfaces and areas to sit and finish styles and things like that, and what that can do for educational purposes and for kids in those spaces. And last but not least was just I saw, a good deal of technology and continuing to be, modernizing some of that stuff. So, go ahead. So we took a look at your utility data, like how much, we talked about this before, but how much are you spending on your gas and electric? So we thought it was, but it was like right around $1 per square foot, I think. So then I just graphed what both the consumption and the cost over the last couple of years. So I think it went down in 2020, maybe just due to less usage. But it starts to kind of creep back up there in 21, and we could probably even run the numbers and projections for 2022. But I would say just on average, could you be doing better with some things? Sure, but are you a huge waster? Not by any means. So then we listed a couple of main opportunities that we saw in terms of in the energy world. There are some things you can do to make sure that the pumps or the motors that are running your pumps and fans do not have to run continuously. They're able to vary so that you can use less energy. We saw some old pneumatic controls that still use the copper wire and a compressor. So that technology is a little bit dated and everything is digital now. We saw some spaces that had yet to be converted, although maybe Mike has finished those by now. And lastly, we saw some areas with some high ceilings that could benefit from fans that will make sure to bring that heat down to the floor, and all the mechanical equipment that serves those spaces just have to work, does not have to work that hard. Couple more was, we saw some air handling units that were just looking like they could use a little bit of maintenance. Building envelope, what we're looking to do is tighten up areas that are either where air is coming in or out. It's in the winter, it's just cold air. Those are the two biggest spots, right where the roof meets the wall, where you see that dark blue or purple line. And then at the bottoms of most exterior doors with an aftermarket sweep and door kit product. And last but not least, solar. I like to propose this measure at the end when you have made all of your reductions and then you slap solar onto it, you really can make a sizable impact. A lot of times we see folks putting solar onto their buildings, and it's great, it's not to say that they shouldn't, but a lot of times they're offsetting waste that they're producing. So if they put a system that's making 10% of their electricity and they're wasting 10% of their electricity, they're just breaking even. Okay. We saw a few other upgrade opportunities along the lines of the educational spaces, expansion of shop, athletics, locker rooms. I think that's going on right now. A little bit more furniture, storage, playground, kitchen, roofing, probably things that you guys have been talking about. But to speak to what Tabby said earlier, it's kind of like this ongoing list where instead of Mike coming to the board each time, like, well, what projects are we going to do? You'll already know what the next 10 years is going to look like. And some can move up and some can move down. But he is not sitting there generating project lists year to year. That's done one time, collect all the assets, and then that's it. Last couple slides here are just some pictorials. I just wanted to mention that Upper 90 and PRA have been working on a virtual reality model called the Classroom of the Future, and we've extended that to show an entire school building. We presented last year at the State Education Convention, and I think we're going to do something this year. I guess I'm not sure, but I want to just take a couple screenshots to show you what the designers are thinking of that these new spaces in schools are looking like. So here, I thought it was, definitely in the space of doing the best with what we've got, making the most of the spaces that we have. So I thought this was not, let's say, too far off, so to speak. You're doing some great things there. Keep going. This was a space where I thought here was some noticeable differences, different layout of how the furniture is, and the way students use that technology is just a little bit different. This is classic hallway, whereas where Steve alluded to, hallways are now being used as breakout spaces because kids are learning at different paces and stuff like that. Here's another one where I thought there were some good things. Looks like, the desks are designed, and even I could tell some of these tables, even the ones that we're sitting at, are designed to be flexible. So that's some good foresight into how people are interacting with our furniture today. So lastly, we'll just talk a little bit about some next steps. So I think the big question is, well, how would we do this and what would it cost to be getting started? I think is an easy question to ask. So we're again excited to be back at the board, sharing this message with the rest of the members. And I did share a proposal for how this study would be conducted. So again, it starts with the facility study and moves into the educational space analysis. But if you want to go to the next slide. We've done this with a couple of other districts in the past, and we propose a style where we don't ask for a payment obligation up front. So we say what we think the cost of that study will be, but certainly, we behind the scenes, there are many more hours put into things like this. This is a good way for us to understand whether our school district clients are interested and are serious and motivated about going into this planning effort, but we don't want to make it insurmountable for people to get started with this kind of information. So it takes about 180 days to do that. And so that concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Is there any questions, any other, I guess, comments or feedback from, we definitely covered a lot there. This is something that the board has talked about for a few months now, I guess, with price and things like that. So I don't know if while we're all here, if there was anything that the board, are you guys doing a facility walk today? Is that on the agenda? Okay.
Do you focus at all on the exterior?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So I would consider that its own building system. So the whole envelope as a system, all the roof wall connections and all that construction would be evaluated. Yes.
We have the walkaway fee, that's the initial, but your hope is to stick with us through any referendum. Things like
Yeah.
that, and you make your money by a percentage of whatever the overall project is.
Correct, yeah. So in the proposal, I think that Randy was able to share in the packet, I did want to include like a schedule of the costs and fees that would go along with that. So, not knowing what the needs were and what projects were picked, some of that is a little bit flexible, I would say. Because some needs are more cost intensive than others. But then, yeah, that walkway fee would be applied to the engineering effort, so to speak, of whatever was a result of that study. So.
And when you guys get into a project, a couple things that we talked about before, just Kramer Brown Brothers.
Sure.
So if
Sure.
you get a company like that, do they typically push back? Do they have their own engineers they want to work with, their own people, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, on the engineering side, that we'd be working heavily with Steve, as the architect, they would be also part of the table of what engineers you'd be bringing forward, but there'd be plenty of times where there would be a scope of work that would be bid out. It's called the concrete work. Let's say you're going to be building a small, a 2-classroom addition. You'd be breaking out bid packages for all of those scopes of work, and someone that would have the capability to perform that scope of work in-house, like a general contractor like Kramer, they'd absolutely be able to supply a bid on that in that example. So, or if we started to get a little bit bigger where we said, yeah, I think we're going to want some more help on this. That's what I was alluding to earlier to say, this is starting to get beyond what I think we might be best suited to help you with. So, in that instance, we would just recommend that, you go down that path. That makes sense. I'd love to say, oh yeah, we can do it all, but just in true transparency, there would be a time where I would think, but as far as some of the needs that we've seen, some of the things that we've expressed earlier, I didn't foresee that happening, but I just want to at least offer.
Yeah, just didn't know, if like you guys get a percentage and their guys get a percentage for getting, like you said, the stacking thing.
Yeah, I know, like they would just have their costs for doing that. So I know sometimes they work in a design build fashion, but this would be more of your traditional construction where there'd be a spec produced by an engineer that they would be adhering to. I appreciate the questions.
Anybody else? I think that's
Thanks
it.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Safe travels back.
Yeah, thank you.
Ashley, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I have just a few general things. I kind of spent the first few days shadowing Mr. Carroll, kind of getting a feel for how we'll work together in spaces and what responsibilities will be shared versus mine versus his. And so we're starting to get a feel for that. We have been working outside before and after school to ensure the traffic flow is good and working. And we've made a couple tweaks, but overall, we've gotten good feedback and it seems to be, when I'm standing out there, it seems to be going well. So I think that was a good adjustment that we made and we always weather gets cold and things change and rain, you know, all those variables, but it seems to be going well so far.
When you say tweaks, like what did you change?
Like for example, on the elementary end, when the cars loop around in the morning, the grass is still wet with dew, so kids are running to that far sidewalk. So we just added some cones, like as just a visual barrier for the kids, so they kind of know how far out they are, and the cars can't go without us.
Sure.
And then just reminding parents, you know, after school, for example, to go all the way down. You know, if you're the first parent here, you're actually like setting yourself up to be the furthest away for your kid to walk, but the first away is on. So,
Okay.
just like super minor.
Mhm.
We also kind of are working to develop a new way to document and track student disciplinary goals, so that, you know, Mr. Carroll's gone or I'm gone, we can at a glance look to see kind of what's going on, if it's ongoing, if it has been dealt with. But then the idea is, if it gets to the point where we would maybe need to drill down to figure out, you know, is there a trend, is it a certain time in the hallway we're having issues, is there a certain space in the school, that will have the ability then to drill down some of that data if it's that way, well, we might do that. So we're working, developing that. And then I just have a few public thank yous that Mr. Carroll asked me to speak out. So the first one, a thank you to the Lions Club for their school supply donation. A public thank you to Jake Terrell and Darren Loffberg for donating time to landscape here at the school grounds. A thank you to Ron of Portwine and McCon for the use of the low to move the ticket booth and the retaining wall. A thank you to Quentin McCarthy for helping to clean up the downed trees in the school forest. Also to Dave Tim for helping trail cleanup in the school forest. And then a public thank you to TriStar for the recent mulch donation. Any questions or comments on the last slide? It was brief.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody that donated. Randy?
Yes, a couple of things. In your board packet, there was a copy of the 21-22 school year seclusion and restraint data. That's required by DPI to report to the board each fall, and then also eventually submitted to DPI by December 1st. And seclusion and restraint is obviously something, the last resort type of thing, and fortunately last year we didn't resort to. So in all categories, at all three of the buildings, there were no incidents that required seclusion of students or the restraint of students, physical restraint. So it makes it a very easy report to give when there is none to report. So there's that. A couple of other things. This coming Friday is the first of the pupil count days. There are 2 a year. One is the third Friday in September, the other is the second Friday in January. And these are the 2 dates, and in particular this one, that dictate our funding and our revenue limits. And so that's a big day. Students need to be in school the day before or the day after, and or the day of this Friday. So for us to be able to count. And that's usually never an issue, and it can be any day before, any day after. So it doesn't have to be Thursday and Monday. So with that, it'll finalize our open enrollment. There was a number that was thrown out earlier tonight. That number's quite a bit off. Assuming the requests that are on the agenda tonight are approved, there are 42 students who are open enrolling outside of the district, and that includes, I might add, not just this year, that's all students who are over the years who are currently going to school. And we have 39 coming in. And again, that number isn't just this year, it's all inclusive. So just wanted to make sure you had correct numbers. We had a part on one of the boilers go out today. It's called the back flood preventer. It stops chemicals from getting into the boiler water, and it died. It's replaceable. It's already being worked on, but it's unexpected costs. The part alone is going to be somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. That doesn't include any potential labor or anything. So it's just like owning a home. You get these pleasant surprises. The other two things I wanted to mention very quickly is we were very fortunate for our professional development this year. We had a young lady who came from the Association of Wisconsin School Administrators, ASA, which is the principals group. And we had booked her, and by we, I mean Josh, had booked her last spring for diversity training. And she's been doing that. The day after she was with us, she was over at Riverdale. She was at another district the following day. But she did a really, really good job with our staff. Was really quite pleased with the full day workshop that she put on. Staff was very receptive and very open to it. And we will have her back. She did a really nice job for us. And finally, the last thing, I attended the CISA 3 PAC meeting last Friday, and one of the topics was looking ahead to next spring as we start doing the budgeting for next year, which frankly we're already doing. But CPI, which is what is generally used, is the number that's used for not negotiating, but determining salaries for professional staff. This year it was a 4.7 increase in CPI, and the board chose to give the full 4.7 to the teachers for this year. Next year, preliminary numbers, and they are preliminary, are looking like 6.5% to 7%. So it's something that we're going to have to address and take a look at over the course of the next 9 months as we get closer to that. But I just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up in what direction that was headed. So, any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Transportation committee update. Who was the chair of the transportation committee? I think you actually already gave us the update. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's.
Sorry.
No, thank you. We can move on to buildings and grounds committee update.
We had 2 meetings, both were basically about the landscaping and the building up here with the cement pad, which is all been completed. And talk about replacing the sign on the road.
Yep, that's next in line.
And then the football lights, that's something we wanted to, is that done already or?
Not to my knowledge. So I don't think we'll be able to get the lift in. So we have some lights in the football field that are either burnt out, or when the windstorm hit in August, they flipped the lights. And so we're working on getting those taken care of.
That's something we had to put out there for approval.
I don't know, Linda, we don't have a bid on that, do we, for the lift and stuff?
No, we do
No,
not have.
so
that.
yeah, nothing to approve.
Didn't that happen in the last few years at Filling Electric? Did something similar like that happen, do you recall? Where the, and Building Electric came out and
Yes,
did that?
yes, and we turned it into insurance.
Nobody wants to climb the poles,
Right,
so that's where the lift comes into
yeah.
play. And it's not just, it's a, you know, it's one that will get that high, so. So good.
Okay. Finance Committee, Todd?
We met last Wednesday and we went over the 2022-2023 revenues, or anticipated revenues and expenditures. Try to prepare for next month's annual meeting. Are there supposed to be any attachments for this?
No,
Not on this one, okay. I just have them here, but so, I mean, it's fairly close to a balanced budget, I would say. There are several things that are still up in the air over the next month that they don't know. They won't know in some, I think, what's the big one that is in October, that.
As Randy mentioned earlier, after the third Friday.
After
we
this
have final
Friday,
enrollment.
better understanding of final numbers on that. As of last week, it was about $74,000 short, but there was also a cushion added in certain places that Linda pointed out to us that if the numbers needed to, and the questions adjusted, and that's definitely fairly close budget at this point. I think we'd have some updated numbers for next week.
By October meeting?
Prior to the annual meeting.
Yeah, we should have all data by the October 12th meeting. And certainly, if there's any changes between then and the annual meeting on the 26th of October, obviously we'll keep everybody in the loop, but it should be pretty minimal after that point.
Any questions? New business, alternate open enrollment applications. Maybe?
Yeah, there are a total of 5 students requesting to open enroll out. And those were included in the numbers I gave you a little bit earlier. 3 of those students have never set foot in our buildings. They moved into the district. And so we'll be going back. And then we have 2 students who are asking to come into the district. So we have a total of 5 out and 2 in.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment applications.
Second. A motion by Baumkamp and second by Jaeger to approve the open enrollment applications both in and out. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Fundraiser requests.
In your board packet, there was a list of the fundraisers. Staff have to have those in, I think it was last week, if I remember correctly, for your approval for the year. And the list is there. I don't know that there was anything really new. I think they're all fundraisers that have been done here in the past from what I was told.
I'll make a motion to approve the fundraiser list.
We have a motion by Schmidt and a second by Mitchick to approve the fundraisers for the 22-23 school year. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Agreement with Iowa Grant School District for Spanish 4.
Yeah, as you know, we already have a 6603 agreement with Wazika Steuben for Spanish 1 and 2. There are currently 19 students enrolled as of last week. Anyway, I'm not sure there's been any changes since last week. Iowa Grant is asking for Spanish 4. They were not able to fill that position, or at least not be able to offer it themselves. They have, I believe it's 6 students who are taking the class remotely through Zoom with Ms. Johnson. And we're just asking that approval, a similar approval as the Wazika. It's just a few fewer students, but the same terms per student, et cetera.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with that agreement.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion by Mitchell and a second by Schmick to approve the agreement with Iowa County School District for Spanish 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Discussion regarding consent agenda.
Yeah. So Andy and I brought this up to Andy a couple weeks ago, and I shared it with you guys through my weekly board memo. Consent agendas are designed to make meetings run a little more efficient and allow for time for further conversation on issues that are of importance. So for example, tonight, if we were running a consent agenda tonight, the minutes, the first 3 items under new business, and the 3 items under personnel items, all would be fair game to be put under the consent agenda. And with the consent agenda, what you do is you make 1 motion, 1 second, and 1 vote on all of those items. However, if somebody has a question about the bills, for example, that's another one that could be under there. If you had a question about a specific voucher or a specific hire, or you wanted to make a special announcement, for example, if somebody's retiring, you wanted to pull it, any one board member can pull something from the consent agenda to be acted on independently. And then you just run it like the normal part of the business. But what this allows you to do is take care of the regular business, if you will. Do it quicker, more efficiently, and again, allow yourselves more time to do some things. For example, to have student presentations or staff presentations. They have full discussions about, we just had a presentation tonight. This is, I assume, a topic that we're going to be talking about a little bit over the course of the next year plus. So give everybody the time to have those kind of discussions. So the idea, I think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had thought that we would try a 2 to 3 month trial to see how everybody likes it. If you don't like it, real easy to go back to the way we're doing it now. And if you like it, well, then great.
Do you have any questions about that?
I have questions, but I would probably rather learn as we go to see how it's gonna
Okay,
work.
sure. And like you said, we can always go back to the other way of doing things. When do you want the board members to let you know that they want something pulled out? Can they?
Oh, you do it that night at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can they also do it ahead of time if they know that that's something?
No, it's better to, I mean, you can give, for example, they could give you a heads up, me a heads up if they wanted to, but it needs to be done within the confines of the board meeting itself official. Right.
That was one of my concerns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, any single board member, and it can be because you just have a question about why are we paying this amount for something? Or why are we, whatever.
So we need to vote on moving to doing that, correct?
It probably would be a good idea. Yeah, and by the way, those of you going to the WASB session on the pre-session, I'm pretty confident they will bring up consent agendas with you.
I'll make a motion to approve trying for minutes.
Okay, and we have a motion by Schmick and a second by Jaeger to do a 3-month trial of the consent agenda and then reevaluate. Is there any more discussion?
You'll notice a little bit of a different look to the agendas, just because they'll all be grouped together and it'll say consent agenda under there.
Okay.
Or over.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Football program future. So everybody does have Randy's note. Lynn had mentioned that the survey results, I don't think they are I looked back at the notes, I don't think they are in there. So if anybody needs that, I see Lynn left. Do we
Yeah,
have
she's on a
access?
Zoom meeting with Belmont
Okay,
at the moment, so.
does anybody want that information again? Okay.
So just a couple of notes, Mr. McGuire mentioned the co-op with Iowa Grant. Iowa Grant did slam the door shut on any possible co-op in football last week. Their board has no interest in co-oping, so I understand your comments, but I just wanted to let you know that's not on the table, at least from their point of view. So my recommendation that I shared with you on the agenda is to move forward with the 8-person football. Our numbers, as we've discussed since August with parents and community members, with kids, et cetera, our numbers put us in a position where we're not going to be able to sustain an 11-person program. 2024, I mean, ideally 2025 would be when we start, because that's really the big drop off, but 2024 still is pretty slim picking. So the recommendation for me, after looking at all the evidence, hearing all the discussion we had in August at the board meeting with the various people who are here, seems to me that the strongest thing that came out of all those discussions was that Highland wants their identity. In order for that to happen and to maintain the team in some semblance of competitiveness, 8-person football seems to be the best option for us. That's my recommendation.
Did you get any feedback from Iowa Grant, or was it just? Nope.
It was interesting. There was interest from their coaches and their AD who did reach out to us. I talked with their superintendent, who sent out a notice to his board members asking for their opinions. And the response he got was, I'll clean it up a little bit, but basically, heck no. Replace heck with something else. Yeah. So yeah, it was at the board level. It wasn't at the staff level necessarily.
So then what we need to decide on tonight is if we're going to stay with the 11-man or move to 8-man. That's the vote we need to have tonight.
Yes.
So does anybody have any other input or anything I mean, the most that I have heard from people is just that they want to keep the Highland identity. I haven't heard anything really in favor of one or the other. Just didn't want to, most people that I talked to just want to stay with Highland, whether it be 8-man or 11-man.
That's the same that I've been, several people actually since the last.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Oh, that's the same thing that I've been getting, in the community since the last meeting that we had, the football discussion, is that the main thing is they want to stay Highland. It's whether it's 8-man or 11-man, the interest in the co-op with Iowa Grant with everything was not something that they wanted to pursue, which now it doesn't even sound like that's even an option, so.
Right. So that doesn't really help with our decision tonight. Does anybody have anything else that they have gathered regarding the decision between 8-man and 11-man? It sounds like administration has said that they feel it's safer if we move to 8-man. I didn't see anything specifically about that from the coach email. Did anybody else, did you say anything about that, if I recall? But, right, about the, no.
Most of it's like, anybody that had kids involved seemed to want to move to 8-man.
Yeah.
There's a few people that don't have kids involved, that we're pushing for the co-op,
But nobody, just 11-man as is. Everybody
I
thinks
guess
that
we
we need to.
really, I don't know if we were really thinking that a feasible option anyway, but.
Okay, so yes, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to do the 8-man, moving the football program to that.
Okay, we have a motion by Schmidt and a second by Jaeger to move our pro football program to 8-man football. Is there any more discussion?
Half of your kids are gonna go to Iowa Grant, just so you know that.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, we are at the facility walkthrough. Are we doing that right now? Are we waiting?
I think it's okay if you guys want to postpone it until after the other action items.
Okay. So we can move forward to personnel items. Teacher intern agreement.
Yeah, we have an intern in grade 1 for first semester. That has been approved last spring, from what I understand. Interns are required by state law to be paid a salary, $4,500, which is what the contract amount is for that position. So we're asking that. I think the last time, Linda, we had an intern was probably 2 years ago, roughly,
Yes.
something like that.
Mr. Russell, I believe it's kindergarten that she's in.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, it is kindergarten, my fault.
And just so you know, we can't open any of these, so
Oh.
you're gonna have to be kind of specific for us, so.
Hang on, I'll fix that.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, so the agreement, it's for $4,500, which is the state statute required amount.
And in the past, we have done that with bigger classes, and that has helped our teachers. Is that the case with kindergarten?
Yeah, that's my, again, that's my understanding.
I move to approve the teacher intern contract for both tracks. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Jaeger and a second by Schmidt to approve Nicole Cox's teacher intern agreement. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Supplemental agreement for a social media coordinator with Whitney Snyder.
Yeah, you may remember back in, I think it was July August, excuse me. The board voted to not renew the contract with social media, the company. And that agreement expires on October 15th. The idea was to try to take care of it in-house. And Whitney is the person that we've tapped to do that. She'll officially start, so the dollar amount that's listed there will be prorated based on the amount of time that she's doing this. So she'll officially start October 16th to be official, and social media was just waiting for her to be approved, and then they will be reaching out with her, sharing information and doing some things. I will compliment social media. They are extremely professional and extremely ethical about how they do their business. So if for some reason this doesn't work out, I would suggest that we may circle back. But the reason is very simple, as we talked about in August. There's a big difference in cost. We're currently paying between $8,000 and $9,000. Whitney's contract prorated will be less than $5,000. So.
And our contract, sorry, with them ends October 16th?
October 15th, yeah,
Okay.
expires at that.
I think it'll just be beneficial to have someone in-house to catch the things that are going on day to day and not rely on teachers to have to do one more thing, some
Right.
data and everything else. I'm excited to see what she can do with it.
Yeah, we are
And we
too.
did do it that way.
Right.
Prior.
Great.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, the reason we went with the social media though was because it wasn't enough presence on
Right.
social media
Right.
prior
Right.
to Whitney potentially taking over. The only question I have is there going to be some sort of, like, so, how do you call it? Like, if you have a job description, right?
Mhm.
is there a social media job description so that we know what she is required, what she is not required, what we can expect from her, what we can't expect from her? Just because she is getting paid extra to do the process, just as if social media is, and they gave us quote unquote pin of what they were gonna do, what they weren't gonna do, how many posts they were gonna make per day, per year, per month. I mean, it was, so.
I think that would be
I mean,
helpful.
I'm all for the in-house part, for sure, but I kind of want to know what are we expecting her to do in that amount?
Even a social media calendar, like if she just came up with kind of a layout of what.
I think I understand that that's hard to do, but an idea of like, I'm gonna do at least 3 posts a day, and then.
I'm
don't
gonna
know,
make sure I
something,
have
because-
every event.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta make
Facebook,
sure that all avenues of our school district are being broadcasted in a positive manner.
That's been,
Not just the
Right.
athletics, also the
or
academics.
certain athletics, there's a lot of complaints about that some of the things are given more attention than others.
Right.
Sure. No, I mean, I will have a job description for your perusal and approval.
Perfect.
In
Sorry.
October.
Thank you.
No, it's a good point. It really is. I apologize for not having it tonight. I frankly didn't think about it.
Okay, so we will table that and move to the Spanish teacher contract addendum for Jackie Johnson.
Yeah, this is, Jackie is the teacher who's doing the 26603s. She's got 25 additional students. And, which is fine, that's not the problem, but she is also spending a lot of additional time. And so the agreement that she had made with Bryce, prior, in the spring, when the first one with Wazika was taken care of, was that, the money that came in from those 2 school districts would be, basically moved her way, 90% of it, as a stipend for the additional workload. The other 10% is for us to take care of employment taxes, that kind of stuff. So it basically, we're acting as a fiscal agent for her because otherwise the other 2 schools would be paying her directly. And she doesn't want that, nor do they want that, because that brings up their own issues. So we're acting as a fiscal agent in this case.
So this is the same thing, just adding Iowa grants.
Right, yeah, it'll be what, yeah, it's Wazika, it's
And
the same agreement that we had with Wazika, and then Iowa grant, so.
Okay.
Right, because currently this contract does not say anything about a grant,
Right,
correct?
yeah, there should be a second one there as well.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we broke them out because it's 2 separate, even though the contracts
And
are
that's
exactly
pretty
the same.
standard, the way it's run.
Yeah, I had Eileen put together the contract,
Okay.
so, it passed her muster, and,
Okay.
it's pretty consistent with what I've seen in the past when I've done this with other schools.
I'll make a motion to approve both Spanish teacher amendments.
A motion by Schmidt and a second by Mitchell to approve the Spanish teacher contract addendums for the agreement with Iowa Grant and with Wazika. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll take the walkthrough before we adjourn, Randy.
Yeah, probably would be best, right?
So how? Video, just pause it?
Well, I guess we could.
Can I make a motion to shut it down while we do a facility walkthrough?
But then we'd have to start back.
Oh,
Can we just adjourn and then do it?
Or
or-
I think it's okay to adjourn.
Okay.
You're not doing any business, it's just literally taking a walk
Okay,
through.
so let's just go ahead and set the dates for the next board meetings. You had sent something out for the meeting, policy meeting with Steve.
Yeah, he can be here on Monday, the 10th, at 6 o'clock. So for those of you on policy,
That works for me.
hopefully, you will make it.
Is there anything else gonna be on our agenda? I know that we can start at 5:30 if we needed to.
Oh, for policy?
Yeah,
We can check with Steve. I don't think anybody.
oh, not for him, but like if we had anything else that we wanted to discuss, we
Oh.
can start at, all of us can be here usually at 5:30. So
Sure, we could start the meeting at 5:30 and then,
And then he can come at 6.
right, because I know there were a couple of little tweaks that I don't think are gonna be on his updates,
Okay,
that Josh brought up, and there was one thing that I wanted to bring up as well, so that would be perfect for dealing with those.
okay.
Yeah.
5:30 on October 10th, for policy. Any other committee meetings that you need?
Not at this point. I don't think we'll need to do finance again unless there's something really remarkable that happens between now and the 12th of October. So I think you guys are off the hook, and the only other one I could think of perhaps is if Buildings and Grounds wanted to sit together and debrief and make some recommendations to the whole board before the 12th. I guess that would be the only other one I can think of.
Okay.
And if interested, just give me throw me out a date.
I'm always available.
So the whole presentation that they did tonight, is that like how soon are we anticipating a strong look at that? Like,
But I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, you guys could, we could put this just on the general agenda for October and have a whole board discussion instead of just Buildings and Grounds. And
I think that would be
more
helpful.
productive.
I think I need a lot more information from everybody that knows more about it. It was.
I wasn't at the June meeting either.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you guys are okay with that, just doing it as a committee of the whole, as part of the regular board meeting, that certainly works for me. But, because I had put a note, include on the October board meeting, after the presentation, so, if you guys are comfortable with that, we certainly can do that.
Let's do it. Okay.
And you'll have more time because you're doing a consent agenda.
Maybe we could get Mike here for that too.
Yeah, that would be.
And you'll take care of that, maybe?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That it?
Yeah, other than just a reminder that the annual meeting is at the end of next month, 26th.
I have one last question. How did the county fair affect school attendance? Do you guys know?
12 students.
12.
Just on Friday.
11 on Thursday, 12 on Friday.
Just as a general comment, moving forward, it'd be really nice if we didn't start school on a Thursday of the fair. I know it doesn't affect a ton of people, but it just might be something to think
Minute
about.
Point did get out of school because of the fair.
Yeah, Josh said he was going to like try to figure out why or how it.
Well, next year it's easy because September 1st is a Friday.
Right.
So you lose one day,
Right.
you can put that in somewhere on the back end of that. So that's easy. Is the year after that, that'll.
Right.
Because the year after that, even then, you're okay, you're actually okay, because the first is gonna fall on a Sunday, and then it's gonna fall on the Labor Day, so you've got 3 years before it's gonna come up again.
Is
But-
that, sorry, is
No.
that something like you'd like more of those kids to be able to be at the fair because they didn't?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I mean, as a parent who's very involved in the youth things that go on at the fair, it's very difficult to process and do school that Thursday. And it would be nice to have, I think a lot more kids would go support fellow students too if given the opportunity. So, I mean, again, I'm one person and that's 12 kids, but, it just,
12 kids is a decent percentage of our total enrollment, so, yeah, and I think what happened is with the moving out of the charter and
Yeah.
going back to that September 1st start date, it just wasn't something that came up when the calendar was built for this year. Now, it's a live and learn type of thing, so.
I make a motion to adjourn so that we can do the facility walkthrough.
Motion by Schmidt and second by Jaeger to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. I think we've got some stuff for signatures, right, Barb?
Yeah, that's it.
Do we want to go? We can, or do you need a?
I think we can go and then we can just do them when we're done.
Okay.
I don't think this is gonna take too long. So, it might be related, I don't know if there's anything outside we need to see unless we want to.
that, by the ticket booth over there. I don't think I have seen that yet. How did it turn out? Okay?